Let me emphasize that the information being disseminated by civil defense authorities is intended strictly and purely for purposes of informing the citizens of precautions which should be taken in the event of any local emergency. They are based upon standard procedures established by the Federal Office of Civil Defense and by the Dade County Civil Defense Council. It is necessary to alert the citizens regarding precautionary measures in advance of a possible emergency. These precautionary procedures are much the same as information circulated in advance of a hurricane. In most cases, hurricanes have avoided this area, but we have been prepared.
How much does this order cost you?
I spent $18.90.
Is this your normal order, or are you stockpiling?
Oh, I'm not stockpiling. I feel that if anything were to happen, you wouldn't be able to eat it anyhow.
You, ma'am, how much did your order cost you?
Oh, my order came to $19.70. It's my regular weekly order.
You're not stockpiling then?
No, I'm not, but I noticed that most of the Cuban families are really loading up. I don't know what they're afraid of if we aren't. But I noticed one order came to about $45.
Things are bad in Cuba, bad for America, and we got to remove the cancer of Cuba as it now is under Castro. The Cuban people, as you know and everybody else knows, are now slaves of Russia. And we've reestablished the Monroe Doctrine by the President's proclamation, and I hope it progresses to its logical conclusion, the destruction of Castro.
It was apparent immediately that the general attitude of the man in the street was in total opposition to Castro. This was expressed by businessmen in the area and even by the newsboys on the street, who would express utter contempt for Castro and the things that he stood for.
Have you ever seen it this busy?
In the 20-odd years that I've been in this industry, in the food industry, it is rare that I have seen the mobs that have come into our stores since yesterday at approximately 12 o'clock. I could possibly compare this type of shopping to our 1948 hurricane, but we have been jammed up, we have been mobbed. People are buying like food is going out of style, primarily because of this Cuban crisis and our proximity to the Cuban situation.
Today, I find no evidence of hysteria. Our citizens recognize that though we live close to Cuba, the image of freedom which we create for the enslaved peoples there presents a far greater danger to Castro than his weapons are to us. Florida today is the center of national attention. Our behavior is an important factor in the continuing war of nerves. I have full confidence that we are adequate to the challenge.
The City Commission wants at this time to emphasize that these measures are being taken merely as precautionary. We urge you to continue your daily, normal lives, but to keep yourselves informed as to the current situation, should an emergency arise.
Is your wife with you at this convention?
No, she didn't come down with me.
What was her reaction when she learned you were coming to Miami?
At first she said, "Hey, that's kind of near Cuba, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, maybe you better not go." And I said, "Well, why not?" She said, "Well, I guess you'd be safer there than you would be if you were going to Washington or to New York or right here near Detroit."
What kind of reports do you hear in Baltimore about the situation down here in Miami?
Well, I would say some of the people read or heard about this county manager or something that said something about putting up a supply of canned foods, and I think that was about the only scare that our people in Baltimore had. And they said something about Key West being loaded with a lot of soldiers, but I figure that's quite a distance, and we don't have to worry about it.
What was the reaction of your friends and neighbors when they heard you were coming to Miami?
Well, many of them were rather surprised we were still coming, but we decided to come, and we were sure everything would be all right.
You feel you're just as safe here as any place else?
I'm sure we are. Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm.
First, that the school system has direct lines connecting them with Conrad, with weather teletype, and the National Civil Defense Emergency Circuit. Second, that information coming over these lines is disseminated immediately to the school with directions as to what is to be done. Third, that the schools themselves do not contemplate keeping the students in the school except for a very short time. In an imminent emergency, take cover. If there is a little more time, the students would be moved to the safest part of the building. Third, though, if there is still more time, the students would be sent home.
County has, during this past week, been making an all-out effort to inform our citizens of what they should do in case of emergency. We will continue to give this information. In addition to that, we'll be concentrating the early part of this next week on providing as many public shelters as we reasonably can in the shortest possible space of time.
In Dade County, there has been located in this survey approximately 160 buildings with fallout protection meeting the criteria, of which 51 has been licensed by the owners to be used as fallout shelters. It is urged that the building owners cooperate with their local officials in licensing these spaces for use as fallout shelters. The Office of Civil Defense has always advocated that each citizen prepare himself or herself with at least 2 weeks' supply of food and water in emergency conditions, and I think that the officials of this county are to be commended in advising their citizens to do those things which they should have been doing all along.
Dade County is very effectively organized and has the kind of leadership that should be available all over this country from local authorities. And this was demonstrated during the last week when it was necessary for Mr. McNayr to stand up and say publicly that there are certain things that should be done. Nobody wanted to hear these things. It wasn't very popular, but he had to do it, and he did it, and he did the right thing. We've got to have that kind of leadership.
The people of Latin America, I believe 85% of them are completely behind the president in the bold move that he made. We had no sense of any anti-Americanism in Argentina or in Uruguay when we were there, and so many people came up of all walks of life and said that they thought this was a wonderful thing, that at last America was taking bold action. At last we feel that America is going to stand up to the communists. I talked to President Guido of Argentina day before yesterday. I talked to the defense minister, to the minister of interior, to various members of the cabinet, and each one of them would say in private We're so happy at what the president has done. We just hope that America doesn't back down, because you have an opportunity now that you may never have again with Latin American public opinion back of you. And the only, of course, exception to that are some extreme, vocal, left-wing groups, but they were almost totally out of the picture. I don't think that Mr. Khrushchev is ready to push the button to trigger an atomic war. I seriously doubt if in the past few years he has been ready. I think he wants the world intact, and I think he feels that communism is moving ahead on schedule without a war. A war would disrupt his timetable.
There's one thing that I would like to get cleared up, and that is that I did not just up and leave the court without anyone here knowing when I was going to be back, or without anyone to care for the business of the court. I left. They knew here that I would be back in my office this morning, Monday, and everybody knew where I was. So I didn't just leave without any notice. The second thing is that, that I have done anything morally wrong by taking my family up to Missouri. I have done what I feel was the best for the protection of my family, and I think these are decisions which every man has to make with regard to his family. I have done nothing wrong. I have no apologies to make for what I have done. I did what any father would do, and that is make a decision, what he thought is best for his family.
We are here today protesting the fact that Negro dentists in 12 southern states are denied membership in the American Dental Association. The American Dental Association says that this is a problem of the local level. If the local level will admit you, so will we. We feel that this is a thin veil of hypocrisy. We say that 12 states cannot govern the destiny of the other 32 states. And our primary purpose is to point up to all members of the American Dental Association our condition where we are ostracized from the mainstream of our profession.
The only solution to the Cuban crisis is to eliminate the communist tyranny through force of arms. The Cuban patriots, struggling to overthrow Castro, will continue on a war footing until the final liberation of Cuba is achieved. It is imperative at this time to alert the American continent to the oft-repeated lies of Khrushchev without respect for the pledged war or gentleman's agreement. These maneuvers could be a time-gaining device which will enable the Soviet Union to unleash further aggression in this hemisphere.
I feel quite happy about it, and I feel that the finest minds in the country and the best minds in the country are behind whatever decision's made.
Perhaps this is the beginning of more understanding between our peoples.
My name is Don Sebastian. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. I'm down here for a short rest. If I was concerned about the international situation with Cuba, I would not be in Florida today.
Have the Peace Corpsmen in Latin America had any problems with the Fidelists and communists there?
Oh, there have been a few incidents, nothing serious. Of course, the communist press in South America has attacked us as being CIA agents and warmongers, but as a general rule, we haven't had much trouble in this regard because the Peace Corps is not in the cities where the big Communist Party is located. Our Peace Corps volunteers land in a town, they get their instructions, and they go into the interiors of the countries, and the communists there leave us alone because generally the gossip about the Peace Corps is good in these places, and they know that it's not politically expedient for them to attack us.
What a difference a week makes. This is the Army recruiting office in Miami's Cuban Refugee Center. In the past 2 weeks, an average of 60 Cubans a day were enlisted in the Army. Last week's average was 75 a day. These figures do not include those who joined the Navy or the thousands who tried to enlist in the Army and were turned down for various reasons. Last week, during the Cuban crisis, this office was jammed with patriotic Cuban refugees trying to take an active part in what they thought would be a shooting war against Fidel Castro. But the picture was drastically changed over the weekend. Khrushchev decided that President Kennedy meant business, and the Russian leader said he'd remove his missile bases from Cuban soil. This decision, in turn, removed the immediate possibility of American intervention in Cuba. Human nature being what it is, the flood of would-be Cuban enlistees suddenly trickled to almost nothing. Yesterday, only a handful of Cubans tried to join the Army in Miami. Business is just as slow today, and the prospects for tomorrow don't appear to be any better. This is Ron Oppen at the Cuban Refugee Center.
Frank, the seas get pretty heavy out there?
Yeah, it got pretty bad. We had, it looked like about 40-mile-an-hour winds the first night, and then it kind of tapered off to about 35. And every night it was real bad, you know?
You got a lot of water down below, haven't you?
Yeah, she's probably a few leaks, beat the seams at her. You know, we was laying broadside of sea, we couldn't anchor. And everything hit her right broadside, you know? But I don't think she's hurt bad.
You have to do a lot of bailing?
Quite a bit, yeah.
How did you attract attention?
Well, a boat came right by us.
John, how do you feel now?
I feel great now I'm here.
Could you just turn this way, please? Where do you live in Miami?
I don't know the address.
Up in the northeast section, right?
Uh-huh.
You get pretty hungry in those 3 days going without food?
I got pretty hungry.
Get scared?
Yeah, I was scared.
Chief Silver, you were on the rescue ship. What condition were these people in when you discovered them?
They were in real good shape. They had no food for several days.
How about the seas?
Seas were rough to moderate to rough. Wind about 25, 30 knots.
You had much trouble getting a tow on them?
No, it maneuvered in real fine.
La única solución de la crisis cubana es la eliminación de la tiranía comunista por medio de las armas. Los patriotas cubanos que luchan para derrocar a Castro continuarán en pie de guerra hasta que se haya logrado la liberación de Cuba. No estamos solos en nuestra lucha. Nuestras repúblicas hermanas, que ya han repudiado y expulsado al régimen de Castro del sistema interamericano, se han comprometido a ayudarnos en esta etapa final de nuestra liberación y ellas lo cumplirán.
The deadline with regard to those interested and their submission of their proposals in line with certain specifications is set for December 7th, 1962. After that date, the successful one will be submitted to the electorate of the city of Miami Beach to determine the franchise to be granted. Until that time, we have prevailed upon the present operators to handle the existing tram situation until the actual election of the successful bidder on Miami Beach.
Florida is the second worst state in all of the 50 as far as representation is concerned. Under this plan, about 12 to 13% of the state's population will be able to elect a majority of the people in the Senate.